Welcome in, guys, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin. I'm here with my co-host, as always, James Haskell. In this video, we wanted to focus on some of the remaining free agents that are tied to the Ravens, or maybe some that we'd like to see the Ravens go after the first week of free agency frenzy has finally passed, and just see who we think they should go after, who they will go after. So, Jimbo, do you want to start us off with maybe a couple guys that are still out there?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do would probably start off with our own guys, if that works for you. And I know that we've shown interest in bringing back Levine and Peanut. That's Anthony Levine and Patrick Onwuasor, who, of course, was our linebacker, and then Levine was kind of our Swiss Army knife everywhere type guy on the defensive side of the ball, and special teams ace. So, I like both moves. I think Levine is definitely a locker room guy worth having back. Definitely a glue guy that you can place in a lot of different roles. He reminds me of Delaney Walker from a defensive perspective when he used to play for the Niners. If you can think back that far, he was that everything guy.
Kind of like Juices for them now, Kyle Juszczyk.
Yeah, but just on the defensive side of the ball and special teams. So I like it. I like the Peanut. I like the Peanut conversations as well. I'm for bringing both of them back. I'm assuming that Eric's going to be fiscally responsible with the right numbers. But what do you think? What do you think about bringing those guys back? I don't think that you're as high on Peanut as I am, but I'd like to know your thoughts.
Whoa. Your video and audio went a little wonky there for a few seconds, but we will move on. I'm glad you're back. I think the Peanut one is I'm kind of torn, I feel like, on him, because he definitely brings value, and he's a known commodity. He's a guy that wouldn't have to learn the system. You know what you get out of him, but it's also a guy that just didn't seem happy with the Ravens at all times last year. He seemed like he kind of butted heads with Coach Harbaugh a few times, and really didn't hide it, the fact that they were butting heads. He did it in front of fans and reporters alike on the practice field, and was pretty vocal and loud as him and Harbaugh got into a little bit of an argument. But, he's certainly somebody that you can count on, a guy that may not be great in the run game, which is why I think he's still out there, because he just doesn't do good at taking on the big offensive lineman blockers and being able to shed and still make a play on the running back. And I'll be honest, I still have flashbacks of remembering Nick Chubb run 88 yards untouched, and I remember seeing Peanut get just washed up in the line and not even touch the guy, and that worries me. So I don't mind if we bring him back, but I only want to bring him back on a team-friendly deal. I really would like to see I don't know what it is about Peanut. I like him, but I don't want to see us throw a long-term big money contract at him. I just don't think he's that kind of guy. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think I am a little higher on him, but there's people always make these comparisons to our other undrafted inside linebackers, just linebackers in general. And I mentioned to you this before. I watched that divisional game and where we beat the Broncos back in 2012. Peanut is no Donnell Ellerbe.
Yeah.
He's not Ellerbe.
You like to know.
Yeah, why? They showed a play where he broke up a pass over the middle, and he was dropped back. We were playing zone, and he rode with the guy corresponding to him, offensive player in his zone till he passed him off, and then he split right off of that guy to the guy that was running a crossing route, and Brandon Stokely, and then deflected the pass. Peanut. Yeah. Is not doing. I mean, it was an incredible play. I was shocked, and you just forget certain things and how good certain players were. But with that said, Peanut has made big time plays and big time moments. I think that if we get him back to the point where he's flying around and we're not asking him to think too much, instead of thinking, just reacting, I think that we can see some of those big plays that make his weak points. That outweighs some of those weak points, right? So that's kind of where I'm at. I agree with you. I mean, it's got to be team friendly, but I think we're both on the same side when it comes to Anthony Levine. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think Anthony Levine, as you mentioned, he's perfect Swiss Army knife that every team could use. That his versatility on the defensive side and also his leadership and skill on special teams certainly makes him valuable. And he's one of our longer tenured Ravens, so he's a Raven. I always want to see us bring him back. And to your point about Peanut, I think it makes him a little more valuable when you look at the recent additions and the fact that he'll probably be seeing less offensive linemen coming up to that second level and being able to get to them early and get their hands on him because of Calais, Brockers, and Brandon Williams. So he may be more valuable to us now than he was last season, and may be more effective than he was last season. Just due to the guys around him. So, it's possible Patrick could be, an improved player, certainly still young. But, yeah, I agree. I think Levine would be important to bring back. He's a guy, most defenses run their sub packages. It's very rare that the defense is in their standard 3-4 alignment. They're typically in the nickel or even dime, and he's certainly valuable in those two, especially the dime. He certainly makes himself valuable. So, yeah, I'd like to see him bring him back. And a guy you mentioned they could bring back on a fairly cheap deal.
Yeah, now there's a couple other guys that are still outstanding, of course. And I know we want to get to some names that are out there, but let's talk about the number one corner, according to a lot of reports, that's still in the open market. And that's Jimmy Smith, who's, of course, a former Raven and a long-term Raven. One thing that, as much as we've been able to figure out, as far as our cap space goes, equating in, rookies, and as much as we can equate in, we're going to be somewhere between 9 and 13 million based on that final figure of Calais Campbell. And of course, that's some room to work with. I'm interested to see what sort of interest Jimmy is drawing out there. What is your take? What's your opinion on bringing Jimmy back, and what sort of a deal are you giving?
Man, you're cutting out, Jimbo. You're cutting out bad.
Am I back?
Okay, you're back. Yeah, you're back now, but it was rough past like 8 seconds. It was a little rough. What was your last question?
So what?
Sorry, it was like it was bad. It was bad, but we're back. Okay.
Yeah. So what sort of deal are you giving Jimmy if you're talking about bringing him back? So first of all, do you want him back? And then second of all, what sort of deal are you giving him?
Yeah, so I wouldn't mind bringing him back. The question is length of contract and value of contract. It's weird. I mean, I like Jimmy Smith. I like what he brings, but we have to remember that he was hurt. He's been hurt a lot lately. We remember him fondly because when we brought Peters in, he also came back during that Seattle game and he played the rest of the season and didn't miss any more weeks. But we forget that he missed that beginning part after he got hurt. I think it was in the first series of the first game. He sprained his MCL or something and missed a few weeks. So certainly not necessarily what I would call reliable, but he checks all the other boxes. That's really the only box he doesn't check is that reliability. So I don't know. I guess I'm kind of torn on whether, because he's going to need to get a decent amount of money. He's not going to come in here on some 1-year deal. I think he's going to at least look to get a 3-year deal out of it. That maybe is really a 2-year deal, with guarantees. So I'm kind of torn on that. I wouldn't mind seeing him bring him back, but I tell you what, if they couldn't, and if they choose to not go with him, I want to give you a name who I would like to see the Ravens bring in, just in case. So I think might even be a better pickup, but could cost some money, and that's Nickel Roby-Coleman out of the Los Angeles Saints Los Angeles Saints. Holy crap, the Los Angeles Rams last year, who ended up being one of their top corners after. They went in the season with Marcus Peters and Aqib Talib, but certainly didn't end the season with them. They brought in Ramsey, but Roby-Coleman ended up being a pretty big, important player for them. Now, it's funny to see. He actually was ranked as the 19th ranked cornerback last year by Pro Football Focus. So he's a smaller guy, but here's what he is. He's a heck of a slot corner. He's a great slot corner. Now, most people say, well, wait a minute, we got Tavon Young coming back. But if there's anyone who's not guaranteed to play, it's a guy like Tavon Young who's coming back from a neck injury who I believe they elected to rehab rather than do surgery on. So we don't really know the status of that and how much we can really count on him coming back. So you bring a guy like Roby-Coleman in who would kind of solidify that interior cornerback position if there was something were to happen to Tavon Young, because then we'd be kind of out of it. And we really were putting in guys that didn't necessarily fit that mold as a slot corner, and kind of fitting them in there with Jimmy Smith. And we saw Marlon Humphrey go a heck of a lot inside last year just because we felt more comfortable with Peters and and Smith and even Brandon Carr. But although we did see Brandon Carr move inside a good amount last year as well. So I would like to see him bring in a guy like Roby Coleman, who fits that mold more interior, because we got guys that can go on the outside, with Marlon Humphrey, who we feel more comfortable out there with Peters and Humphrey. I'd like to see him go more with Roby Coleman if the price is similar. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm a little more hesitant only because if I had to pick between Coleman, or I guess the way I'll phrase is, if I had to pick between areas of need and I had the same amount of money to dedicate to those two areas of need, I would prefer to go outside linebacker if we can get a guy that's the same price as an older vet on like a 1-year deal than the corner position, because we already have – I agree with you. It's not that I disagree with your points. We already have so much money dedicated to our secondary.
Yeah, that's true.
That it's like, gosh, dang it. Like, how many more dollars do we got to dedicate to that secondary before we feel like it's solidified? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he would be a luxury. There's no doubt.
Yeah, but I like the fit. I agree with you. And at first I didn't. You sold me on the fit, so I don't necessarily disagree with you there. But you've talked about this name, and so there's something that's happening, though, before I get to the next name, with the Ravens, that with the extensions and even the recent signings, Eric talked about when he took over as being a GM of being a fiscally responsible team while still being aggressive. We've also noticed that he is pretty laser focused and knows who he wants to get. So with that 9-13 left, to me, it seems like he's saving it for something. He's trying to gather as many funds as he can. He's trying to put things together. Is there any way we make a splash, one more splash, like a Clowney? I mean, is that even something that's in the realm of possibility?
When we first started the offseason videos, I think we were both pretty big on Clowney. But as the time goes on, the more I look at it, I'm starting to veer away from Clowney. And it's only because his inconsistent production, a guy that is that good to end up with only 3 sacks at year's end, to me, it's almost inexcusable. I know he missed some time with some injuries, but to me, you just can't count on consistent effort from Clowney. And when you accompany that with the massive price tag he's going to require to get him in the building, I don't really like him. To me, I think you're right. It looks like the Ravens are gearing to acquire as much cap space anywhere they can get it. I mean, to extend your punter to get a little over $1 million in cap space, to trade a guy like Wormley, who I think certainly damages your depth on the D-line that you're showing in your moves that you clearly want to bolster, but then you trade away your best depth at that, who's versatile, who could play inside, outside on that D-line and shown he can be okay. So why are you getting any bit of cap space? To me, I think they're targeting Clay Matthews, and I think he would provide a perfect fit for what we need at the inside linebacker position, as well as outside on third down passing situations. He's a guy that is going to cost a little bit of money, but not a ton. He provides natural pass rush, obvious leadership, versatility. To me, it's a no-brainer to bring him in, and it's certainly bolstered by the fact that he mentioned, since being released, that he made a mistake by going to the Rams and should have went to the Ravens last year, which I thought was incredible that he would voice that. And to me, if we heard it, I know the Ravens heard it, and if they're interested, he's obviously shown he's interested, and it would only make sense to bring in a guy like him. So that's who I think they're targeting, and that's who I hope they're targeting. And honestly, I'm starting to move away from Jadeveon and really moving towards we could clear up more cap space if they just agree to a long-term deal with Judon. They could clear up a ton. So why not take the lone commodity, the guy is going to be good at run and pass, and is going to play with a high motor, which you don't know about that with Clowney.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Like you said, if we can come to that long-term deal with Judon and bring him in, maybe we could end up doing that and still squeeze Jimmy in there.
That's true. Or bring back Brandon Carr as a guy that, isn't great, but you know what you get. 16 games, versatile, smart, great in the community, great in the locker room. Yeah, it's something to think about. But I certainly want to see him bring in – man, when I saw Clay say that he made a mistake and should have went back there in the first – that absolutely blew my mind that he would say that.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe he was in a moment of frustration, but yeah, I certainly hope he comes here, and it looks like he wants to.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. I think it's interesting that we haven't made any significant offensive moves this offseason thus far. Now, we have the number one offense in the league, so at the same time, you can say, well, like what for, right? But I do, with Yonda leaving, I know that we have some needs there, even at receiver and things like that. A lot of people have talked about. So I'm really interested to see what happens. In fact, if you guys see behind me, I'm in the war room, the 410 Sports Talk war room right now.
That's right. That's
got
right.
all the possibilities going on back there when it comes to free agents, vets, rookies coming in the draft, everything. So make sure you stay tuned here. If I'm not missing anything, Glenn, other than your guy Dorsett, I'm interested to see what happens there. But I'm not sure if the Ravens, other than, like you said, Clay and the guys we previously discussed, I'm not sure how much more the Ravens are going to delve into the free agency pool without it being guys that get cut, so that way it doesn't count against the compensatory draft picks later on. Yeah. So I think it's going to be really interesting. I really, really like your idea of giving that extension, Judon. We could potentially clear up $4 to $6 million in cap space on top of the 9 to 13 that we already have. Bring in Clay and two others. Who knows?
Yeah, right? One of those lesser name guys, the Philip Dorsetts, the Rashard Higgins, any of those lesser known receivers. Because look, people can say what they want about Seth Roberts. He wasn't great, but it's still him and who's the younger guy who's been around for a while. He was a special teams guy, little return man for a little bit for us. Chris Moore, yes, he's gone too. So there's still positions that need to be filled. You can't just answer all your problems in the draft. So there's going to be guys that they're going to bring in. And really, it's just a matter of fit and price. And you mentioned that they could get an extension with Judon done and create some space. They could also do one with Ronnie Stanley and get some space because he's in the 5th year of his rookie deal and being the 6th overall pick. That 5th-year option is a sizable cap hit, and they could get that cap hit down. So there's other things they can do, but I just find it obvious that they're gearing to get as much cap space. Anytime you're extending your punter to get an extra $1 million, you're getting rid of quality depth and you're trading inside the division. Only the second time that we've ever traded with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're clearly desperate for cap space for something. So the question is what and who. And so it's going to be interesting. It's something we have to stay tuned and certainly as soon as something breaks, we'll be back on this screen, keeping you up to date and keeping you informed.
That's right. So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe, guys. Literally 0.2 seconds. Just hit the button. All right. Do us a favor here, okay? Do yourselves a favor, okay? Stay up to date. We really appreciate it. And if you're getting value out of it, make sure to give us a like. Leave us a comment. Let us know what your thoughts are based on what we're saying. We try and go back and forth as many as you can, with many as you guys on the comments, and address your questions and comments in the videos. So please feel free to do so. And we will talk to you guys soon.
See ya.